Today we are talking with Luca Cappelli, who is the editor of You Won't Be Alone, the horror fairytale-esque film by Goran Stolevski. It recently premiered at the Sundance Film Festival. Go ahead and punch that subscribe button and like our video, and let's get this show on the road.
My name is Luca Cappelli, and I'm the film editor of You Won't Be Alone, which is a feature film by director Goran Stolevski, which is about a young witch, who has been just given shape-shifting powers, and so through these shape-shifting powers, she tries to experience life in the form of other human beings, humans and not, while at the same time, dealing with her sort of a mentor witch, which is an older witch who wants her to actually not live with humans, not experience human life, but live in solitude in the woods with her. More or less, yeah. This is the synopsis of the project, and yeah.
So how did you manage to find your way onto this project? What were like those initial conversations like? What was that process like?
The original conversation started happening with the producer of the film, which is Christina Seaton from Causeway Films. What happened, they watched a film that I had worked on previously called Acute Misfortune at MIF, which is the Melbourne International Film Festival, and they really liked it. It was a little bit of a local hit, even if it didn't do that well in festivals around the world. But it really went well in Australia, and they watched that film and they really liked the editing, and they had this project in Melbourne, which is where I'm based. They're based in Sydney, where I was based, and so they were looking for an editor in Melbourne, and they just got in touch, and then I had a meeting with Goran, who was the director, and yeah, we sort of had similar taste. The project, I read the script, and the script was quite amazing. It's like what you see in the final film was already in the script. All the elements were there, and obviously it was such a strong new concept for me that I just wanted to get on board as quick as I could, and with Goran we shared influences and sensibilities. He's like me. He was born in Europe. He was born in Macedonia, and he moved in his early teenage years. He moved to Australia, and likewise, I was born in Italy, but I moved to Australia, at a later stage of my life. And so, I guess, we bonded on a certain fascination for European cinema, and certain directors and certain influences, and from that moment on, I just wanted to get on board, and I did what I could to make that happen. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened as well around that time, so the film was delayed over a few months. But then eventually it happened. Not too long after, which was good.
What was your favorite part of working on this project?
Yeah, this sort of obviously montages are a lot of fun. Okay, and there are lots of them in the film, and Goran, one of the biggest influences that obviously we were talking about at all stages was Terrence Mallick, and especially his early films like Days of Heaven, but I mean also Tree of Life and Badlands. But that sort of how can I describe it? Yeah, that sort of lyrical montages that switch the focus from the interiority of a character to what surrounds him, the nature around him, and but still staying in this hyper immersive stage, and yeah, that sort of, I'm fascinated with that kind of cutting, obviously, and how far you can take it, I guess. It's, it can be divisive, some people really go with it and some people fall for it and come on the journey. For some others, it's just too much. But it was, I was interested in working in that, with that methodology, and again, that methodology was kind of embedded in the project, in the script. You could already see them happening, so that kind of made them easier for me, I think, to put together. So yeah, that's always a lot of fun.
When you were editing You Won't Be Alone, did you consciously aim to give each character a voice of their own?
We were not. I mean, some people mentioned it in reviews or in interviews, and some people found that they had, that there were kind of different styles for the different characters. But frankly, it's something that probably happened even subconsciously. They obviously tried to go for the same performance or the same feel. At the end of the day, it's the same character embodied by different actors. So there had to be a certain of consistency, but somehow what they were doing in front of the camera, and because there were no words, it's mostly based on their physicality at the end of the day, and that was the thing that imparted the rhythms and the cuts and how we were going about them. Yeah, so yeah, let's say not consciously. If it happened unconsciously, just one of those things that.
What was it like working on this film during the pandemic?
I mean, it was all about the pandemic. It was all, thankfully, we managed to be always in the same room. We never had to do the remote thing, which was really good. I mean, yeah, I've done it a little bit on a documentary, because before Goran's film, and I don't know, I find it extremely tricky. It was also, early stage of the pandemic, so the technology wasn't there in some way, or anyway, the budget of this other film wasn't allowing a sort of a more advanced experience. So it was a pain. But thankfully, with Goran, what happened was that they, how was it? I think they managed to shoot the whole film in Serbia before the second wave of COVID hit. Just before, basically, they got out of the country, and yeah, 2 days after, it seemed like COVID exploded in Serbia. So they were really lucky with that. And then they arrived in Australia, and we started cutting at the end of the year together. I think it was mid-December, and that summer. So COVID was really low, and by then, we were allowed to go to a studio and be in the same room. The only thing that I did on my own was assemble. I was assembling the film while they were shooting, and I was doing that from home. I did all of that from home with there was an assistant editor in Serbia, and there was like an assistant editor / assembly editor that was helping me in Melbourne. But that was all from home, which was not so much fun, but still, it's like, yeah, we were lucky. We were lucky in that sense.
Can you share with us a little bit about editing the film in Macedonian? How did you go about editing the film when you don't speak the language?
The film was the script was translated, so we had the English and the Macedonian on the script, but Macedonian is written in Cyrillic. It's like Russian. It looks like Russian, or anyway, something really similar to that. Which has, I've done at high school. I've done a little bit of Greek, like in Italy, and so I could work out some words. I could work out just some. Let's say while I was assembling I don't know, maybe I'm too optimistic, but maybe I got, yeah, 60% of the stuff was right. You know, obviously I had the translation, so, but sometimes I was getting things completely wrong. And when Goran came in, he was like, look, she's saying something completely different. Just just delete this sub. But the assistant editor, Milos Sakansky, who was in Serbia, I don't think he spoke Macedonian, but obviously he had a better take, of it. He could work out roughly what they were talking about, and so he's the one who put subtitles on the rushes. So I was getting rushes from Serbia that already had subs, so that helped. That helped a lot. But in the past, I've worked on a film that was shot in Cambodia. So the whole film was in Khmer, which is the Cambodian language they speak in Cambodia, and it was really low budget. At the start, we couldn't afford translators. So anyway, we couldn't afford translators in the edit suite. So they were shooting, and I was getting these rushes, and I had no idea what they were talking about. There was a lot of improv going on. So there was a whole early stage where we were cutting just based on instinct, like and sometimes we got things right, funnily enough, but we were trying instinctively to work out what they were talking about. Anyway, if you have the subtitles, it's better. Let's put it this way. Sounds fascinating, but subs. If an assistant can put subs on, that's the way to go, I'd say.
What was the process like working with Goran Stolevski on You Won't Be Alone?
It was it's like it was an interesting process. Again, all directors are different, and with first-time directors, also you never know what to expect. He was really confident, I think, in his vision at the end of the day, which makes my work easier, I suppose. He really knew what he was going for stylistically in the edit. And again, he had shot all this footage with that in mind. Okay, so obviously I knew from the get-go that it was going to be jump cuts, lots of jump cuts, and and again montages with the music. And I knew that the voiceover was going to play that part in the film. He was really, I think one thing that was quite peculiar was he really didn't want to spoil his perspective, and so he was not a person who wanted to work on things and work them until death. He was really someone who knew where to stop and go, okay, let's leave it there for now and watch it tomorrow, which is something that I usually have to tell directors to do, because there's always this tendency with less experienced directors. They have this feeling that the more time you spend on a scene, the more time you spend on a sequence. Okay, let's work on this sequence for 2 days. That kind of, while it's actually, it doesn't work like that. It's actually perspective and space and breaks that give you ideas, and not just intensely going and laboring things. And Goran refreshingly really knew where to stop, and especially when you work in that fashion, when there's a lot of montages, a lot of moving parts, it's easy to lose perspective, and he was really careful not to do that, which was great, I think. But yeah, no, it was a fun ride. It was a fun ride. We got stopped once by the pandemic. I think there was a lockdown in Melbourne, which went for a week, but it was fine, because anyway, we were waiting for feedback, and yeah, no, it was fine. And also, we were really on the same page. I guess being both from Europe, we were talking about these characters, like the mothers in the film, even the side characters, the villagers, and how they were operating, and their cruelty, their brutality. It always rang true to both of us and really authentic. Coming from Europe, we both had this feeling that those people were someone that we knew, or some distant relatives that we met in our past. Because here in Europe, you always have this echo of this peasant life in the past, especially if you go out of the cities. And yeah, we were always trying to go for that feeling, for that really folk, fairy tale-ish, green fairy tale, Anderson kind of, vibe. And yeah, that was fun.
Were there any other challenges with editing this film you'd like to talk about?
The language, somehow the language was not the language really, but like the voiceover was tricky to finesse, and Goran was going for something really specific. He wanted this character to be obviously, muted and extremely inarticulate at the start of the film, but somehow her command of the language had to develop a little bit throughout the film. And again, even if she was not completely articulated, he still wanted a lyrical element in it. He still wanted her to be capable of expressing a sort of poetry, in some way. So that took a long time. Obviously we were playing with the subs, and even playing, obviously we've never changed the meaning, but there are many ways to translate a word, and so, or to phrase things. And again, you don't want people to pay too much attention to the subs. You want them to be able to absorb them without losing what is going on the screen. So that was a challenge. Yeah, at the same time, so worth it, because I think Sarah's performance, the act, Sarah Klimovska, who's the actress who plays Nevena at the start when she's a young girl, a teenager in the cave. Her performance of the voiceover was just amazing, even without knowing what she was talking about. It just listening to the files was unbelievable. Really evoking. Just really moving. It was it was worth it, as time consuming and finicky, but I think it's I'm glad that it's there.